Hi and welcome to today's roundtable. I'm Abby Jacks from Rakuten Marketing and I'm joined by these fantastic brands today to discuss how retail and the fashion experience has been changing in the past year. It would be great if each of you could go round and just give yourself a brief introduction before we kick off. Marion, let's start with
Sure.
you.
Hi, I'm Marion Rebate. I'm the founder of Ernest Leoty. We're a new athleisure brand. We launched a year ago, and our main channel is e-com, but we also have wholesale.
Hi, I'm Doug. I'm the CEO of meli. We're a British luxury handbag brand, designed in London and made in Italy. Really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
And I'm Liz Warom, and I'm co-founder and managing director of Temple Spa, and we launched our business 19 years ago, and we have an omni-channel distribution strategy, which is in-home, corporate, retail, online, and spa.
And I'm Anthony Capano. I'm the Managing Director for Rakuten Marketing here in Europe. And we are the performance marketing arm of Rakuten, which is one of the world's largest technology and innovation players globally.
Fantastic. So we're talking about retail and the changes that we've been seeing recently. Doug, how have you seen your retail consumers evolve in the past year?
It's been an incredible year, I think, for the consumer. I think they've been moving at a hell of a speed. We've seen a huge drop in footfall on the high street. There's a number of cases from Arcadia to House of Fraser. The retailers with big footfall stores and sort of number of stores are having a lot of problems. And as the retailers move very quickly to online, what we're seeing is a much more increasing amount of consumer sophistication and expectation of the consumer as well for discounts. I think really today, I think we can safely say that nearly only the majors, the big brands, the fashion houses are the ones who can get away with sort of not discounting very much. So I think discounts are becoming more and more prevalent for the consumer, and they're almost waiting, and they're being taught to wait for the next round of discounts. So the shutting of retail store estates, the move into online, and really the kind of expectation with GDPR not to be bombarded by these brands and having a bit more privacy, but they are getting a lot of information thrown at them.
And Anthony, you were recently stating that it's not just retailers that are competing with brands, but the likes of Amazon and Netflix are influencing a consumer's level of expectation. Tell us more about this wider circle of influence.
Yeah, as Doug just mentioned, it's tricky times for retailers as it is, but then having to go away and compete with the likes of those brands that you've just mentioned makes it really interesting times and difficult times for a lot of retailers out there. So if you think about how consumer expectations have changed over the last few years, and you look at the likes of an Amazon or a Netflix or an Uber, for example, or even if you're in the US, Verizon or a Chase Bank, they are now setting the expectations for who your customers are. They've changed the expectations for that consumer. So I was catching an Uber today. I looked at the time to destination. It was 7 minutes to get to my house. I cancelled it. That's not good enough for me anymore, 7 minutes apparently. So things such as personalisation, looking at immediacy and relevancy. And I think if you look at it from a retailer's perspective, looking at how quickly you can get goods to somebody's house if it's an online purchase, you then have to have returns policies. If you then think about how you interact with a Netflix or an Uber or an Amazon, that's the expectations now of a consumer. So a lot more complex, but a lot of retailers and many of those at this table are doing it right. But it is a challenge for a lot of retailers out there.
Thanks. And Liz, Temple Spa has been around for over 20 years now, and personalisation is a term that's been around for years. What do you think today's consumer is expecting when they think about personalisation?
Well, I think that there's two probably distinct consumers. I think there are those that want a very quick entry and exit out of a transaction. So they want to be able to use the internet to research, find out about a brand, and then maybe go back to that website for a quick purchase to repurchase something. So I think you've got that type of consumer that will also use social media to investigate and find out what a brand spirit is all about. I also think conversely, there are people that do want the up close and personal experience. And for us, that's something that we have chosen as one of our key channels, which we call Spa to Go. So the idea is that the consumer can come to a spa and experience beautiful treatments and hands-on experience at the hands of a therapist, or if they don't have the time for that, or they just aren't people that are into spas, then we'll bring the spa to you. And that fortunately has helped us negate what you were talking about, which is the bricks and mortar experience, which is a little scary. So what we've done is we've made it up close and personal. We'll bring the brand to you. If you would like to open your home and space or workspace and have a few friends together and experience the brand, that is the ultimate in personalisation. And so we've kind of flown in the face of the digital and gone very kind of touchy-feely and personal, and that's just worked for us.
Great. And Marion, you also have been looking to get feedback from your consumers and have been looking at your products and how you can modify those collections. Tell us more about how you've been doing that.
Yeah, sure. So we're actually quite a new brand. We only launched a year and a half ago. And we design collections more or less every 4 to 6 months. And the feedback of the consumer is super, super important because they are the ones buying at the end of the day. So the first feedback we get is pretty obvious. It's what sells from what we have already. But we get a lot of direct feedback too, whether customers love to give feedback actually, whether it's by direct email, through the website comments, or through social media. Social media has been a very good tool for feedback, direct feedback. We've actually gone a bit further too, and we have asked feedback from our customers on social media. So we've told them, oh, we're designing a new collection. What do you want from us? And we've used Instagram surveys capabilities, which are amazing. And we're actually very surprised by the results. We were launching a ski capsule, and they told us they wanted a beach capsule. So something much less technical. And that's proven a very big business line for us now. So it was very useful, definitely.
It's really interesting to see consumers really want you to understand them, and they're quite happy to give feedback if they think they're getting something back. A really interesting stat that I was looking at this week was saying that 79% of global consumers say you shouldn't be able to use personal data for marketing, yet at the same time, 78% of global consumers say they'd be more loyal if a brand showed that they really understood them. That to me is a very challenging dichotomy for the industry. Doug, how important has data been to melo with regards to engaging consumers who kind of want high relevancy but low intrusion?
Yeah, I think data today is, when I left from my job in the city and came to the world of fashion, I found that data was very much lacking 5 years ago. But for me, I've always been pushing this data agenda. And we've done a huge amount of work in terms of profiling who our customer is and where they live and what they read and where they travel to. And just understanding your customer intrinsically helps you then give them what they want. And you can push that further by, serving them what they want. So you can use, weather tools now where you can serve. If it's raining in London, you can do an advert outside for Burberry which says, right, today it's raining. Here is the advert, buy the Burberry check today, get your Mac today, and you can serve it that if it's sunshine, it can flip that and it can give you a pair of sunglasses. And so that kind of using technology and using the data together becomes very powerful in the world of fashion today.
And Anthony, you mentioned that advertisers need to combat this consumer fatigue from advertising with targeted partner strategies. Can you expand on that for us?
Yeah, and really to piggyback off what Doug just mentioned there around the use of data and technology, those companies I mentioned in my first comment that are the new competitors, that's how they've become such strong competitors, because the way they use data and technology. So to combat that, because not everyone has those type of budgets available to them, how can we get creative and appeal to new audiences? And what we've seen of late is really the emergence of content providers. And when I say content, it's the traditional publications that we all know, that we read as growing up. They're moving admittedly digitally. and even more recently, the rise of the influencers. Not necessarily just pushing price and product, because a lot of retailers can't compete with the bigger players on price and particularly price, and in some cases product as well. So how do we then intertwine our messaging by the use of a group such as influencers? So we're certainly seeing that come to the forefront in recent years, where it's feeling a lot more authentic to advertise, and that's where I think through some of the challenges with data recently, that is where a lot of retailers are moving to.
That's really interesting, because Marion, Ernest Leoty have seen tremendous growth partnering with highly targeted, very particular influencers across the globe. Can you talk to us more about that strategy and any learnings that you've taken from it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's been really an amazing experience working with influencers. And as a new brand, we wanted to position ourselves in a very niche segment. So we are a sports brand, but I didn't want to communicate as a sports brand. I wanted us to be a fashion brand. So I took the deliberate decision to work only with fashion influencers, actually, which was quite unusual, but which was maybe more powerful because they promote less sports, if that makes sense. And so we were able to distinguish ourselves in that way. And then also they were followed by the customer base, which we wanted to access, which is highly affluent and interested in fashion, I guess. The other point is that they were followed by the wholesale buyers and by press. And so whilst we didn't do press directly, we did it indirectly, because press then contacted us because they were following these influencers, and so did wholesale. So it's been a very good working relationship, yeah.
And one of the things I think that's really enables things like influencers and the changing space of retail this year is technology. And one of the terms we hear a lot is AI. And Anthony, you have a really interesting analogy that you use for AI and how it will become the norm. Would you like to share it?
I can. So I like to give this analogy, and maybe not perfect, but I'll give it a good shot. Is if you think about electricity, back in many years, probably many years ago, and how expensive and how difficult it was to access it, and we actually hear it. It's in a book documented from Edison to Google. So go away and read that book. But I like to take the analogy of when internet came about. So certainly in my household, it was dial-up. It was that terrible noise that we would hear when you're dialing up on internet. If everyone remembers that, I had to scream at my sister to get off the phone because I was on Messenger. It was frustrating. It was so slow. It was expensive back then as well. To where it is today, where if you go to a coffee shop and the Wi-Fi isn't as strong as it is in the office, you get upset. So if you think about that journey there, it's very much about how expensive internet was, how expensive access to information was, to what we are today. So for me, it's very much where AI is. At the moment, it is still quite expensive. It is still quite difficult to access. But in years to come, it will be the new norm. And I think retailers today need to think about, do I build it myself, or do I partner with organizations out there that can help me on this journey? I think that's where a lot of retailers are at the moment.
And Doug, we've spoken about AI before, and interestingly, you were saying that it wasn't something that you particularly focused on in investing in or doing, but then actually as our conversation came on, it was you are doing it through partners, technology partners. How do you see AI fitting in your future plans?
So as Anthony said, for us, we see it as a bit too expensive for us to take on personally at the moment. We're watching the space very carefully, and a lot of other fashion brands are engaging with AI actively and spending a lot of money on it. Serving content, they know who their customer is, they can serve content to that customer. For us, we partner with different partners, and for example, Rakuten have an AI capacity where they can go after customers who look like our customers using their AI platform. It's very, very powerful for us to acquire new customers using our AI. I think where it's going to happen first for us, where the tide will break, will be around customer service, where you start to get kind of live chatbots answering customer service inquiries in real time, And probably like at the moment when you get frustrated on the telephone, you just want to speak to someone. I guess AI will become a bit like that, where you just want to speak to the operator, and you eventually get put through to customer service, and the bot kind of gives way. But we're really excited about kind of how fast it's developing, and as the costs come down, we'll play more in it.
So just to sum up the roundtable today, I would love if everybody could go around and each say 2 things that you're most excited about within the retail space in the next year. Liz, I would love to start with you.
Well, I think for us, we have realised that you've kind of got to go where your consumers are once you understand who they are, what their interests are. And for us, we found that a great number of our consumers and prospective consumers travel. They love to travel. They love to be in niche hotels. They love to be up the front of a plane. And so for us, it became important to ensure that we have product placement into those spaces, because there's nothing like being able to try a product and then go on the website, find out more about it, and then buy in that way. So that for us has been very interesting. And actually, the second part of that question leads me to China. So for us, the big launch for us is going to be China, and that is because we happen to have Temple Spa products in the largest hotel group in China. And we found that what that did, that caused the guests to be curious and find out how they could get hold of the product. So they've put a demand on us. So we're going through the whole kind of registration process and doing a cross-border kind of deal on that at the moment. So that's very exciting.
And I know you've got some exciting plans, Doug, with regards to moving direct to consumer. What are the most exciting things that you're kind of thinking about at the moment in the next year?
I think speed to market is everything for us at the moment, and like how fast can we get the product to the consumer. So we're really excited about kind of really accelerating that. The other thing sort of generally I'm interested in is Bluetooth technology and how that's going to enable everyone's lives more and more in the next few years ahead. And another thing I've come across which I love, which is beacon technology, which you should all have a look at, which is really fun. Go shopping, you go to a supermarket, and suddenly your phone activates, and it can tell you've got 1 minute to get to the checkout to get your pair of Nikes. And there was some great studies done on where the price can fall at the speed at which it takes to get to checkout, and how fast your discount will fall, and however long it takes you to get there. So using these kind of technologies to kind of gamify the checkout and make it more exciting when you're going around these department stores is really interesting.
And Marion, you guys have been seeing some fabulous growth with the business. What are you excited about with the next?
So for us as a business, we're actually really excited about our US launch, which is something that has been done by many existing European brands, but we've already seen that the US is our biggest market, having not done anything there. And I see that the consumer is very different. They buy much larger basket values. They return more to, they expect much better customer service. And so we're doing a massive push in that geography, and we're really looking forward to it.
Thank you. And Anthony, what are you seeing from a tech perspective? What's exciting you? I know you've talked about globalization before. What's really going to excite you in the next couple of years?
Well, next couple of years, I think given the next 12 months, we need to survive that and get through that. I had hair before the last 12 months, but I think for us, it's very much about what I was talking about, the bringing together of data and technology to compete. I think that a lot of retailers out there are doing a brilliant job with that at the moment. To see that propel over the next 12 months will be fantastic. And then off the back of your point around globalization, you may pick up my accent. I'm not from London, I'm from Australia. I moved to Singapore and then over to London. And what I'm really excited about for the UK brands, how many of them are actually globalizing. And you talked about the US. There's such a demand for UK or European brands beyond our borders in the UK. So I think that is actually going to be some great case studies, maybe from this table or out in the market, of how a lot of UK brands have expanded globally. So I think they're the 2 things that I'm excited about.
Right. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your time on the round table. I hope you enjoyed it. That's it for today. Thanks.